It is a Tuesday, December the 21st, 2021. Just 3 minutes before the market opens, and this is the main watch list. I'm going to take a look right after this to see if there was any OTC runners that I missed yesterday, and I will be again focused on morning pending bounce plays. This time I definitely will follow that $15 risk level and $8 risk level on anything else that's not OTC. And of course, listed stocks, $4 risk level. If ILUS makes a considerable drop with a significant amount of volume, I'll consider it, but I probably should remove it at this point because it hasn't really been doing that much recently. ICOA could be a morning panic bounce play. I just would like it to be very clean if it does one because I don't like how it looks too much on the daily chart. GRTX is a bit interesting because it kind of broke out of this range that I had after the gap up, so maybe it can do like a bit of a higher low or some kind of consolidation and continue a breakout. That would be cool, but it's a listed setup, so I'm not that interested in trading it at the moment. AABB, I added it because it started the trade with more, like better price action yesterday and some news, even more volume. So maybe this thing can play as a morning panic bounce play setup. It's not too bad. I'd like it to run maybe today again, and then tomorrow would make it more ideal. Well, that's fine if that isn't the case. LWUV can be a morning panic bounce play as well if it looks clean. Maybe it'll try to re-break the high as well. So all of these stocks I have into consideration, and I'm going to focus on morning panic bounce plays. Of course, if anything on the other watch list looks clean, I might consider that as well. It is 9:45 a.m. I haven't traded anything. There wasn't any morning panic bounce play setup that I would have been interested in, except for ICOA, but this was a bit of a fake morning panic bounce play like yesterday because the close yesterday was 108, so this thing was like a spike in the morning, and then from this 11.7 level it sold off into 10.3, and I just wasn't there when this one was turning around. This kind of follows the strategy that I'm looking for, even though it's a bit of a fake morning panic bounce play, in that it drops, it makes the support level, I wait for it to briefly break it. In this case, it briefly broke it and it came back immediately. It didn't continue the downtrend and make a new range to trade off of. It held this level instead. After it just broke it, it brought it back. That's when I would have been interested in at 104, and I was just too slow because I wasn't there when it was happening, and that really sucks. I just wasn't even at the computer. I had to do something, but maybe I'll catch it another time. And again, this one wasn't too ideal because it's not something that is down significantly on the day. This one is up a little, so it's not ideal, but it did offer some kind of move from this 10.4 level to, right now I got as high as 10.9 in terms of the ask, but it was very easy, and you can sell it even right now at 10.8, so that's actually pretty nice in terms of that. But I just, again, unfortunately missed it, and it wasn't a proper setup anyway. ILUS is nothing interesting to me. It just doesn't look nice. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have this one, not in this watch list anymore, but it's gonna be in the other one. GRTX continues to be a watch. It's not something I'm really interested in trading right now. Nothing really clear. AABB is having a bit of a spike. I'm not going to consider trading it. I'm not really good with uptrending stock price action movement, but maybe if it does like a very nice looking inverse head and shoulders or something like that, I might consider it. Nothing here with LWUV. The volume just isn't there, but it's pretty close to a potential maybe move towards the 33 price, and that would be kind of nice. And as for listed stocks, BFRI is looking pretty cool because it broke out of this range right here. It didn't just break out of this range right here at 10.35, but you can also see it here on a daily chart. It looks pretty nice, but it's nothing I'd be interested in trading right now, especially when the stock gets halty. So I'll make an update later, but yeah, right now I haven't traded anything. In theory, I could have tried ICOA, and even that one wasn't a really ideal setup. It is 10:16 a.m. and I want to record some thoughts. As for AABB, I might consider a long setup, something like where it makes a shoulder here, and then we have a head here, so it's like a head and shoulders, and then it downtrends and maybe it holds VWAP or something, and then I take a buy before it, you know, in theory makes a move, another shoulder, the right shoulder, and then I would obviously sell into that shoulder. That's an idea there. ICOA, very salty that I missed that one. It was pretty much my fault. I should have, I guess, gotten out of bed earlier, and then I would have probably have had just that few more seconds needed to have been executed at this 104 level right there. But offered a nice move, and I probably would have sold at VWAP. It's not possible. Well, not possible, but very unlikely that I would have sold anywhere here in the high, you know, right there at that level. So I will watch this. Maybe it can do some kind of a later day, maybe a higher low, lower low, a double bottom. I might consider something like that. It wouldn't be too bad. I mean, it could break it, sure, but it is going to be a lot of support right there, at least looking at a 15-minute chart over 20 days. So I have those things in consideration, and there's nothing I really want to do with DBRM. It's just uptrending. That's not really my style. This is nice. So WUB did break out of the range here, and it might try to re-break the previous day's high. That might be kind of interesting, but at this point I'm pretty late to the setup. But I'll be watching these things. I don't mind if I don't trade anything. I do have in mind that I'm a bit salty because I missed ICOA, but you know, I'm not gonna also just try to jump in the setup. I've actually been doing work on my main business anyway, just because of the fact that I didn't see anything too nice. But there are those setups that might try to do something, and I'll be watching them. It is 10:28. As for the setup with ICOA, it looks like it's trying to make a higher low. I just don't like how we have such a mega large seller on the ask with over 1 million shares, and that would require a lot of volume. It's not like it can't do it, but they're trying to take it out now. And then at that point I'm pretty much late to it, and in theory I could have been in at 10.8, but I just don't like the large seller that was there. Although I got a lot smaller now, and I'll make an update to see if this thing can offer something. It might not be too bad right now, but I was kind of worried of that large seller. It is 10:39 a.m. and this thing has transitioned from a higher low setup to give or take a double bottom, but I don't like the price action. I don't like how there's still a lot of people with large size at the ask, and I don't like how a lot of people dump on the bid a considerable amount of shares, but I'm going to keep looking at it. I don't mind if I miss this thing if it ultimately turns around, because it's just not the best price action. And you know, even if it makes a nice uptrend again, I just don't like the way it will get there. In theory, I'll keep watching this, but it definitely isn't a higher low anymore, but it could try to do a double bottom here. It is 10:45. This could very well be a bottom, but I'm not interested in trading it anymore, just because of the fact that 105 is going to be a major resistance level. It trades with a spread. There's still, I guess not anymore, but there was a lot of people dumping their shares, and I'm worried that maybe I'll take a cheeky dip buy at 102, and then it gets to 105, and because that's such a strong level of resistance now, it just rejects it. The stock really doesn't want to be a sub penny. It's trying really hard to not, you know, go in the sub penny lane, but there is still a lot of people that were dumping shares, and it managed to get under a penny. And I might still consider a setup, but not really that much anymore. I don't want to be that guy who's just chasing this thing all the way down to the bottom. It is 11 a.m. Look at this beautiful price action. Maybe this will be the ultimate bottom, but there are just too many people on the ask with a lot of size throughout the entire downtrend. I'm glad I wasn't any of these dip buyers who was trying to find a bottom here. This thing is no longer like a fake morning panic bounce play lower low setup. This is something more impressive. This is a very considerable downtrend. Yeah, unfortunately I missed the move here, but at least I'm not paper cutting myself all the way down here. That would be pretty dumb. And maybe, just maybe, it's gonna play off of this level right here, and perhaps it breaks below it just briefly, and then it immediately comes back. you know, ever since it broke the 90s and now it's in the 80s, it did try to briefly come back to the 90s, almost like a sign of a reversal. But then what happens is that people just dump more shares, and you know, the ask starts to get a lot larger, and it just doesn't do anything. But it's gonna turn around eventually, I think, sometime, and I'm probably gonna miss it, and that's gonna be fine because this thing just keeps falling, and I can definitely learn from it if anything. But it is starting to look, or at least trying to look nice, but it could just keep downtrending. Somebody can just dump 10 million shares again and make it really fall off, but I'll be watching this. Okay, it is 11:14 a.m. and I just closed out of my ICOA position. This thing can totally do something, but I just don't like how it's trading. It might get there. I just don't like the way it will get there, but let's just go over it. I was in Y max volume, you know, trying really hard to hold the 80s, and I just liked how there was just max volume. I also liked how VWAP wasn't really downtrending anymore, but at this point it started to uptrend just a little bit, or at least not downtrend as gradually as it was before. It looks like it might try to play off of the 90s now and actually make a move towards the upside, but I'm not going to be a part of that anymore. Alright, we'll see how this thing does as I go over it. I was in at 11:04. Why? I was in at this minute because that was right after the max, you know, volume panic craziness, and it kind of stopped, and it looked like it was really going to turn around, like really going to turn around here. And you know, I think I had some of it recording. There was just so much volume being dumped, and it was just holding and holding, and then, you know, it's not like it's just downtrending like this. It was, you know, consolidating, so it looked a lot stronger. And I got in at that price at 11:04, and I thought it was really going to work. I thought it was going to break the 90s, exactly what it's doing right now, just right then and there at 11:04, but it didn't do it. And I was in 10,000 shares. I sold 5,000 shares 11:05 the next minute because I didn't like how it wasn't able to do it right then and there. I like being in the setup right before it starts to work out, or maybe right when it's just slightly starting to work out. And again, I was out half of my position. I lowered my risk because it didn't work right there, and maybe it's going to downtrend and break this level here at 85. And then, you know, I'm trading that $8 risk level in theory, so, you know, I lowered my risk there at 11:05 just because it doesn't look like it's going to work. And maybe again, I'm selling right here what could be the top before it downtrends, and maybe it breaks the support level like it did consistently throughout this, you know, downtrend here, even though again, this case was different because it consolidated and there was a lot of volume. I sold 2,000 more shares at the same price that I was in at 11:11. Right here, 11:11. There was a lot of people, sure, at the bid, but it just wasn't breaking 90. There was a big wall of people at 90, and it just wasn't looking that nice. It wasn't in favor. And then I placed the final order at 11:13, and I got executed eventually. Not immediately, but I did get executed. And guess what? I think Fidelity is really good. Like, their executions are so fast. I literally got this last piece, 3,000 shares sold at 89, when 89 was at the ask. Like, it was, I just, you know, that's something I would rarely get with Schwab. Like, right now it's 89 by, you know, 90, and then there would be like these two big, and just like this case actually, sellers at the ask, and I would throw my order at the ask and it would get executed, and it would just take a tiny chunk out of the ask, and I would happen to get my shares executed. So I'm really happy to see that Fidelity is looking a lot nicer actually than Schwab in terms of executions. The only thing I don't like is that after I place an order, all of this gets like wiped out, and I have to, like, you know, type everything again, and you know, start all over. Why does it say that? I better not be still in this setup. Okay, yeah, I'm not in this setup. Okay, yeah, good. That kind of threw me off. I thought I was somehow still in the setup. Okay. Yeah, that would have been ideal. Even if it's, right now at 89 and 90, it's not good to be in a setup you don't know you're in. So, yeah, I just didn't like the way it was trading. I wanted it to break 90 sooner rather than later. Maybe it'll finally do it at some point. It looked like it was going to do it just a few minutes ago, but there were just too many sellers at 90. So, yeah, VWAP is no longer downtrending this much. It's now still downtrending, but just not as strong as it was here. So I'll make an update to see what this one does. I had one trade here. I didn't make anything here. I didn't lose anything. I'll check. Maybe I lost like a tiny amount, just a small difference from each execution, but I doubt it. As for AABB, unfortunately, this one's being sold off. I was looking at some kind of like a hand shoulders buy. Right, makes a shoulder, head, and then a little buy before it makes a shoulder, but I didn't like the way it did it here. The VWAP, was broken. It didn't really make a shoulder. I guess you can call this, excuse me, I think you can call this a shoulder, but that was a nice, I wasn't really looking at GRTX, but this is kind of like the same idea. Shoulder, head, and then here's a shoulder, right, and here's a buy, because it doesn't break under VWAP. Or in this case, what I was talking about with AABB, shoulder, head, and then this is like a buy slightly under VWAP but still higher than here, and then this could be the buy and then you sell into the shoulder at 415. But the range isn't nice. I'm just trying to go over the idea with a different one. LWUV, not very good volume, but this thing could totally do something nice later today. And DBRM, I don't like this one. If I was able to short this one, I would probably be very interested in shorting, because of the fact that, look at this, all of these days it trades with so much volume and then it turns out to be a wick, right? So not just a lot of people from these previous run-ups might be interested in dumping their shares in this run-up day, but because it's done this consistently, it's just a bad sign. It's a bunch of red flags trading this long, but it did offer a nice move. I'm not going to deny that at all. This is pretty cool. So yeah, I'll make an update and go over what this thing does eventually. That's probably the only trade I'll have today. Not as salty that I missed this one anymore, but that's totally fine. We'll see what this thing can do. I mean, for the sake of the stock, it should at least try to offer some kind of bounce, but it doesn't have to. Okay, it is 7:57 p.m. and I'm here to call it off and also look at what happened to the stock since I did stop looking at the market maybe like an hour later, and I think I lost just like 3 pennies today, just from regulatory transition fees or whatever they call it, and that's totally fine. I got to learn a lot from the setup with ICOA, and on top of that, I mean, there is zero way that I would have been able to have traded something like that on Schwab. I would have been I would have lost like $30 just trying to trade it and not make anything off the setup just because of commissions. And I'm really happy with Fidelity and how well I'm able to trade there and how well the executions were. It looks like it did do another dip, but a bit of a higher low at 86 from this level here at 85. And then it looks like it actually did a nice move from 86 to 94. It got to VWAP, which is good. That's always the goal. It didn't get right at it, or it didn't get past it, but it got right under VWAP. So yeah, that offered the range. That was a setup I was going for. I was just in too early when it happened. It took a long time and it played out eventually. I think the issue maybe is that I still had the mindset of it being something quick, like the fake morning panic bounce play here. Then I thought, okay, the lower low. And even though I disregarded that and I knew this was going to be a completely different setup because of how much it was dropping, I still had that mindset that it was going to be something that I want to see happen quickly. And this was not the case at all. It took its time, and I did well for what I could have at the time. Maybe I could be more patient with a setup like this, but at the end of the day, it was a bit of a speculative trade, but I think that was a lot of great lessons. AABB did eventually hold itself, so that's super nice and more ideal. So then this thing, maybe if it can run another day, and then after that, it can be a morning panic bounce play potential stock, or at least one that's super clean. GRTX looks like it actually did a nice move towards the end of the day, right at the market close. And yeah, I'm not really a listed guy, but that's an interesting setup there. LWUB is up a lot too, so this can be a good morning panic balance play at some point. The only thing I don't like about this one compared to maybe ICOA is that it had nice, 3 days right here, a nice group of 3 days of trending, and then that qualified for a morning panic balance play, while something like this kind of has like a green day, red day, green day. I don't really see a nice consistent 3 green day movement towards the upside, but it's still going to qualify as a morning panic bounce, but just not as ideal. And this one sold off, not tremendously, but it definitely sold off. Not a big surprise looking at a daily chart. That's all I have for today in one voice crack. God willing, I can be able to trade tomorrow, and maybe there are going to be some good setups, and all I can do is try my best. Nice try with ICOA. I wish I was a part of this move right here, but that's fine. At least I wasn't looking at it right then and there when it was happening and I hesitated. That would have been much worse. That's all I have for today.